Synth TV. Hey everybody, Synth TV, and I am really excited to have with me today Jess and Jeff, who together constitute the synth pop duo Hyperbubble. They've been delighting audiences around the world with their unique brand of synthesizers, pop tunes, and punchy rhythms. They were the subject of a feature film that's been making the rounds at festivals. They've been touring internationally, and they have several studio albums, including their latest, the singles, which we can see over here in front of me. We'll get back to that later, but first of all, Jess and Jeff, welcome to Synth TV.
Thank you, Amanda. We're excited to be here. Cats and synths definitely go together, we've found. So you have awesome thing going for you.
They naturally go together, don't they?
They do, don't they? They do. And so just, I guess, first of all, for any of our viewers who are not familiar with Hyperbubble or your music, can you just give us an overview of the duo, the music, and the history?
Descriptively, we sort of a blend of punk, electronics, and art rock with a touch of cartoon soundtracks, Gem and the Holograms, and I think television commercials come into play somewhere in there too.
And like we said, cats and synths really do go together. I think that's how we initially connected with your cats. I think first Smokey made it onto the Cat Synth blog. We've been connecting back and forth since then. We've been talking about the feature film. So how have the cats played roles in your musical journey?
I think first it was Leon, who was my very first cat ever, because I wasn't allowed to have a cat when I was a kid. I was actually allergic, but I grew out of that. And so I had this cat, an artist friend of mine, Lloyd, had this kitten who was climbing the curtains at his apartment, and it was so cute, and it was black. And Jeff got to know Leon when we started dating, and then of course eventually we're married, and Leon cohabitated with us. And Leon kind of thought he was a dog. He would follow us around everywhere. He would put his little paw up on the doorknob when he wanted to go out, sitting up on a stool. You know, he's a very intelligent little kitty. But we were so inspired, actually, while he was still alive, to write a song about him because he was such a remarkable cat and a big part of our lives. And then sadly, when he died, it's sort of like that song kept playing on the radio, local college radio, and it, I know in San Antonio, kind of became a well-known song, and we performed it live quite a bit. So that's where it kind of all started, but it developed from there. And Jeff, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, first I'd like to delve back into Jessica's childhood real quick, and because she didn't tell you about how she sublimated not having a cat.
Oh no, don't talk about that.
Oh, come on, it's funny.
Should I tell the story then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't allowed to have a cat, but that's all I ever wanted. So I got so tired of not having one. I literally took the face of a cat in an ad. I think it was like Morris the cat back in the day for a cat food ad. Put his face, taped it on. It was like this little fur muff, you know, that you wear out in the wintertime, and you know, kind of put a string on that and dragged it around the house, thinking my parents would finally get me a cat, when that did not work. But it was so pathetic. I mean, I actually thought it was cute at the time, but now that I look back, it was kind of rather sad. That was my little makeshift cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think not only Leon, but a lot of the Hyperbubble melodies come from Jessica singing to one of our cats.
Yeah. Yeah. So encouragement. In the movie, you'll hear the song Encouragement, and I wrote that for Holly, who is our youngest cat and now our only cat that's living. And she had trouble when she was a kitten eating. She was kind of like, she didn't know what to do with food once she was old enough to eat. So I wrote her this song Encouragement, and then Jeff, of course, set it to music. And then that somehow ended up in the movie with all three of our cats. Two of them now immortalized because they're no longer living. So
Even songs that aren't about cats in the end kind of often start off with Jessica singing one of the cats, though, and then just taking the melody and remembering the melody to use in a song at some time.
Yeah.
I think also several cats have appeared on our albums as guest vocalists. Leon singing backing vocals. We have a song, an instrumental called "Attack of the 3D Space Kittens," and at the end you can hear, I think it's Mandarin from Biss's cat, and then our three cats at the very end after the climax of that song. Golly, they're in there other places too. I can't remember them all, but yeah, quite often the cats are used as musical notes, and as far as loading them up into the sampler, you may not even hear it as a meow in some of the songs because we've treated it, and played around with the waveform to where you don't even recognize it was a cat at the beginning.
I think with Smokey, that was another remarkable cat. We've just been blessed. I guess all cats are remarkable, but Smokey was a rescue cat in the neighborhood. And, he was kind of a troubled cat when we first got him. He was afraid of everything, but he turned out to be this total diva because he was in our movie. And who would know?
Video.
Yeah, who would know? Yeah, he was in the video Candy Apple Daydreams first, and then that was part of the movie. That's right. And we actually had our friends who shot the video, Angela and Mark Wally. We didn't realize that they were such talented cat wranglers, because our cat loved them and they could get Smokey to do just about anything. And he was so great in all the scenes. And so that was his little claim to fame. And then he got printed in the paper. There's an article where he's actually reading the article about us and him.
Well, there was an article about the music video debut. Yeah, there was an article in the paper of the San Antonio Express News about the music video debut. Then we sent them a photograph of Smokey reading the review, and then they ran that.
Yes, that's what it was, yeah. And that wasn't posed. He was really reading that article. He knew how to read, we're pretty sure. So.
And Smokey was he was especially present during the editing stage of the Cowgirls and Synthesizer film. Typically, I'd have the editing suite set up, laptop in front of me, and there'd be a shelf right behind me. And every once in a while, Smokey's hand would kind of come up on his hand would come up on my shoulder. Hey,
of approval, yeah.
Yeah, so he was there. I think about 95% of the time, Smokey was present during the entire editing process.
Yeah. So actually, let's jump right into talking about the movie. As we mentioned earlier, this was a full-length feature film that is now being screened at several festivals, and I certainly enjoyed it here. We did a review of this. We'll put a link to that above and in the description below. So how did this project come to be?
Let's see. I think one of the things is we're talking about doing an all-Western synth pop album where we're doing famous country covers, but in our style, Hyperbubble style. And of course, the question came up, well, should we go to Nashville and make this like kind of more authentic, like we're actually in Nashville, feeling that vibe while we're recording? And so that's kind of where that began. And then Jeff, how did Joe Wallace get involved?
Joe Wallace has been a long-time collaborator in music and video projects in some previous bands of ours like Crevice and Pink Filth. And he did a documentary, a short, on the band Crevice, and entered that into the San Antonio Film Festival and got that shown. So we had some experience with that and with him. And Joe suggested that he follow us to Nashville and just candidly record us in the studio and driving to the locations and whatnot. And from that point, we asked Joe, well, what do you want to do with this thing? And he said, I want to make a full-length feature film. And when we asked him, what's it going to be about? He said, well, let's find out. Let's just start the film, and the film will start talking to us and telling us what we need to do to complete it. And in the process of doing that, we learned that the film was not just going to be all about Hyperbubble and going to Nashville, but it turned into a film about cult artists and cult bands and bands from every area of entertainment, from electronic music bands to directors like Ari Gold, to fashion designers like Manuel Cuevas, to voiceover artists like Samantha Newark, who does Gem and the Holograms, to people who are in indie bands who soundtrack cartoon music, like the Scottish band This. And we wanted to, I suppose it's the teachers in us that wanted to turn other people on and inspire other people. For instance, a lot of people don't know the fashion designer Manuel Cuevas, but if you just do a little bit of research on the guy, you find out that he's the guy that told Johnny Cash it'd be a good idea to dress all in black, and did the outfits for the Beatles on the Sgt. Pepper album cover, and did outfits from everybody from Bob Dylan to Dolly Parton.
And I think what was really cool is we went beyond just involving friends who we knew who are happened to be really talented, artists and musicians in San Antonio. It became where Jeff and Jeff's brother and the director Joe got to go on a journey to see one of their favorite bands and meet them, Shoes, who became an integral part of the story. And
would you like me to tell that story?
Yeah, I will tell that story, but I will say the message that Jeff Murphy of Shoes says in the film is pretty much the message we're trying to put out to everyone. It's kind of what the movie's about, which is, and my mom kind of says the same thing when she's briefly interviewed is, do it yourself. Just stay true to yourself and things will happen, and I don't know if that's his exact words, but that's kind of the message. Go ahead, Jeff.
A great example of the flow of the movie just happening was one of the very first scenes that we added to the film after we did all the Nashville shooting. Joe said, why don't you animate something in your life that's a key musical moment for you? And I animated a moment where I was riding my bike to guitar lessons right around the late 70s, and I took the wrong turn, and I wound up in back of the Warner Brothers Records dumpster. And I did a dumpster dive. And when I was in there, I found all kinds of stuff. One of the things I found was a record by a band called Shoes, who were a power pop band, a guitar rock band out of Illinois. I had no idea who this band was, but I took the record home, and this became one of my favorite albums. Then I learned that they were this groundbreaking do-it-yourself band who recorded an album at home, purely DIY, using their own instruments, and even pressing the record themselves in their parents' basement. Anyway, I found this record, and I still have the album. And Joe says, well, now that you've done this animation, why don't you go give that record to the band? We'll drive out to where Shoes live, and I want to shoot you guys handing the record over to them and saying, here's the record I found in the dumpster.
Yeah.
And what Jessica was saying earlier about Jeff Murphy was one of the key messages of the film, right, Jess?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that message was the extreme do-it-yourself message was: don't wait around. Don't wait around on anybody to come in. He mentions like the guy at the malt shop with a cigar. Don't wait for that guy to come in and just wave his magic wand and all your musical dreams come true. You got to get out there right now. And not only do that, but you got to absolutely stick to your guns.
Yes, that's what he said. Stick to your guns. Yeah. Yeah. And also he pointed out, hey, me and my brother and our band, we didn't know how to play our instruments when we started. They started very young, but they learned. So, where there's a will, there's a way. It sounds cliche, but it's true. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things that actually Jessica's mom is in the film for a bit, not just because we wanted all our parents in the film, because Jessica's mom actually worked with Vincent Price and at a TV station in St. Louis. And she would be sent on all these chores like, hey, go get a crystal ball. And Jessica's mom was like, well, I got to find a crystal ball. So she would find these inventive ways to create the sets on the shows that Vincent was on. And one of the things she says in the movie is similar to Jeff, which is, if you want to do it, you'll find a way.
You'll find a way. And it's so special. I'm so touched when I watch that now. It's kind of hard to watch because she passed away. I guess, let's see, that's been January of 2024. Anyway, yeah. So it's kind of recent, but she was such a beautiful person, just such an intelligent lady. And we had to involve her in the project because she's she's super smart, talented. We knew she'd have something good to say, like a little golden nugget in there. And also because of the whole Vincent Price connection. And she had so many great stories to tell
Oh, yeah.
about
Wow.
Vinny. I mean, that would be a whole nother documentary, I guess, if we had thought to do that. But yeah, we actually got to meet Vincent Price's daughter, Victoria, who's an author. And she was in St. Louis, where we live now. And that's where I'm from. And she did this whole weekend event with films and walks and tours of the old places her father used to live in St. Louis. So it was neat. We got to meet kind of a piece of Vincent Price, I guess, a big piece of his life, his daughter, his only daughter. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then the Vincent Price segment, again, led to us filming a music video that was in black and white and doing a country murder ballad, which originally we were going to do The Banks of the Ohio, the traditional song. And then we decided, well, this is a do-it-yourself film. Well, let's write our own country ballad and show what we learned while we were in Nashville, and also write about something very personal. So a lot of that particular song was about loss in our family of our parents. Mm-hmm. And the whole mood of the film shifts to this black and white, serious tone with a graveyard. But we couldn't keep ourselves from putting in a little comedic twist at the end. And I'm not going to tell anybody what that is until they see the movie.
Until they've seen the movie, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, all of that resonated with me. I mean, DIY is part of the ethos here at Cat Synth as well. Mm-hmm. So no, that's really great, and definitely recommend, if you can, check out this movie. And I think with that, I'd like to move to the new album, the singles. So we have done, as of the time this is airing at least, a review of that as well. We'll put a link to that above and in the description below too. And so one of the things there is I recognized a lot of the songs here. I immediately picked out Candy Apple Daydreams, Bionic Girl, and a couple of the others. So what led to remastering and packaging these all up as an album?
I keep thinking of the phrase like a curated collection. That comes to mind because having the best of, in a way, is kind of what we were after. And it was really hard to choose, but just songs that we not only loved to perform live, but that have resonated with our fans and our audiences over the years, and of course ourselves. So just kind of like having this selection of our probably our favorites that were singles that kind of set the tone for the CDs they were on, I think.
Right, and a lot of times, folks can upload their favorite music and stuff, or music that's fitting to films and videos that they upload to like social media sites. And we wanted those songs, which are some fan favorites, to be available in the library and come up to the top. When we started releasing albums, it was the CD era. So this album makes most of the tracks available for the first time on vinyl. And this was done with the fans in mind. And it was the decision that also influenced, like, including certain tracks like Leon, because we knew people would say, "Where's Leon?" It also, for people who had never heard of the band before, though, who may have just seen the film or heard of this from the first time, the album serves as an introduction to the band. In that way, it's sort of a sister album to the soundtrack album to the film.
And I think it was just pointed out by a friend of ours that there's kind of like a momentum going right now. It seems like the right time, whereas, too much time after the movie's been out or between albums, it just seems like the right time. And the singles album complements the movie and vice versa. And since we hope to have our film packaged on DVD, it's like another packaging and whole product that we know our collectors like to collect things and have a whole package deal where there's that visual aspect that you can hold in your hand. There's nothing like pulling that neon green vinyl out of the sleeve for the first time. And so, just kind of complementing what we've been working on the past few years. So
definitely wanted to clearly define what Hyperbubble is and what the band is about after the film, and after doing some more experimental projects as well. And so, as to what Jess just said, opening that record up, we wanted the same experience for our fans and folks who bought the album to be like what we had during Christmas when we got records. You just opened it up and just, oh my God, there's a poster in here and a sticker and a download card and photographs and that excitement of buying a record. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I would like get a record, I get the thing out and like, okay, what's in it? Has it got a lyric sheet? Because it should have a lyric sheet. So we went to the trouble of of replacing all the inner sleeves that were white with pink ones and stuff like that to give the full experience of getting a vinyl album.
I do remember enjoying Leon's solo in the singles album there. That was a lot of fun. And I do also remember hearing one of the tunes that listed some of the equipment that was being used, the vocoder, drum machine, microKORG, which makes me want to ask a little bit more about, what your usual setup is, what you use either for recording or live performance. This is the Cats and Synths channel, of course, so...
I do most of the production on the album, and it's kind of a mixture of the interests. The first being the interest in Moogs and electronic analog equipment. And a lot of that came from, as I mentioned earlier, commercials in the 70s and soundtracks that I heard. And then those like synthesizers and electronic moments during pop music I heard when I was a kid. But also, what was really exciting to me was when digital sampling and digital sequencing became affordable. In the early 80s, you had to spend something like 35 grand to get yourself a tool like that. And for me, that was just a total breakthrough of anything that came into the imagination. We had a tool now that we could do it with. So part of the gear as far as the drums, it's a sampling of like tons of different drum machines and sort of building super snares and super kicks by taking, okay, I'm going to take an 808 snare and I'm going to take a Casio SK1 kick and I'm going to put them together and I'm going to EQ them weird and then I'm going to compress it. Now I get this interesting new snare that you've never really heard before because it's this mutant version. And so I was really interested in blending different snare patterns and sounds and using an array of electronic snare samples in particular. I should say electronic drum samples in particular. And if you listen to the records, you can hear it just switching back and forth between. Oh, there's an SK1 there. Oh my goodness, there's a Linn drum, and sometimes it's the hybrid of both. Electronically, we like analog gear. We like a lot of Moogs. Jess plays two different Moog theremins, and I just really like stuff like Moog Rogues as far as instrument that can really cut through all the other instruments. So when you do a sequence, it has this very sharp, crisp sound that has its own identity. After that, it's just anything we can get our hands on. So in the album, you can hear me banging on the Bee Gees lunchbox, or like we'd be at work and bang on the metal door of the elevator and go, oh, cool, let me make an awesome bass drum and mix that underneath the kick and just going around with the microphone recording sounds. A lot of bleeps and blips and stuff from us just walking down the street and going up to a bake teller machine or a coffee maker or an automatic bird feeder or something like that and integrating them into the music.
Found sound.
Now, Jessica's got her lucky, you get your lucky Casio for back in the day.
Well, I had it before. I definitely had to get rid of it ultimately, but it's a good friend of mine has it because it's like a kind of a museum piece by now. My first Casio synth that I got as a teenager when I was in a
kinds with the
old band in high school, as you learn in the movie. But so that we had for a lot of our singles recordings. But
Jess, you know the kind with the orange hexagonal pads for the drum pads.
Drum pads. It was with
so when you see Jess playing live, you see her doing a lot of those old pads.
Well, when we did a lot of live shows, we had an interesting setup too because Jeff would have his like 2 or 3 stacked keyboards, and I think one of them was a drum sequencer or something, and then I would occasionally I'd have like some electronic drums off to the side, a drum
That's
kit,
right.
a theremin, and then a keyboard, and then a microphone, and just having to space those out and navigate between them was kind of interesting.
That's right. Those live Simmons drums. Yeah.
Yeah, and a theremin is not a great live instrument. It's very temperamental, so it's better. I've actually done some solo theremin performances and some collaborations that have been great because there weren't a lot of people around me. I had that 4-foot radius, but I've also back in the day did somewhere. I remember setting up with a band, and I think it was like a bar or restaurant, and the waitress kept walking by, and it would affect the sound as I just. You learn as you go. So
I think the danger when I'm playing is being a very hyperactive person. It's trying to keep myself from kicking over the keyboards in the middle of the song. And this has happened several shows.
Kick my face almost.
Yeah, there's even photographs where you like see Jessica singing, and you'll see a foot. You'll see a foot right next to it because I'm doing a high kick. But sometimes the high kick would miss, and I'd knock the keyboards off the rack. And then, one of my favorite gigs, I think, was in San Antonio. These two guys came up on each side of the keyboard rack, and they held it up for me for the second half of the show. Come on, dude, go ahead, man, keep going.
Oh, because it fell. Yeah, his relaxed. And these two guys caught it and were holding it the rest of the show. That was at Taco Land. Yeah.
No, that was that was at Night Rockers.
It also happened at Taco Land.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it happened many times. We had this one show where we were playing, what was it? We were playing Fiesta, and it was our Fiesta debut, and we come out, and Jess is so locked in. I was
channeling Selena.
Oh, she was so in the zone, man. I just blew it.
And then you ruined it, as the Scottish say. You ruined it. You ruined it. I don't know what you did. What did you do, Jeff?
I was doing a high kick. You're trying to do one of those. Woo! You get your foot way up and you're jumping in the air and you do the high kick and you miss by 1 inch, man. That little keyboard thing just goes down.
Yeah,
man, that was so funny when they did that. It's like, yeah, guys, that just made I'll never forget the look at the two guys looking up and just going, "Come on, man, don't stop."
It's funny.
Keyboard survived too. Yeah.
I remember playing clubs back when you had to worry about somebody in the front row smoking a cigarette, and then it would go into my lungs, and I'd be singing and coughing. So it was such a wonderful thing when that ended. You didn't have to worry about people blowing smoke in your face in the front row. I don't think they meant any harm by it, but it was just kind of like, what a nice, pleasant thing to not have to deal with that anymore if we were to go on tour again.
Yeah, our live setup was really simplified version of all the gear we had in the studio, but obviously because our stuff was a lot sample based, we had the sequencer, had a lot of stuff on it, and then I would play stuff over the top, and Jessica would play stuff over the top. So it was a really economical and easy traveling setup. We could easily go travel to Europe and do shows by taking our sequencer and then asking promoters to supply us with the rest of the gear when we got there.
Yeah.
One show, I think the show we recorded the live album, we did a live album in London, and we had we asked Ricardo Audubon, or somebody turned us on to Ricardo Audubon and said, Ricardo's going to hook you up with the theremin.
That's in the movie too. Yeah. So not too many spoilers here, but
hey, we love you, Ricardo. We love you, Ricardo. We ain't talking, but we appreciate the theremin, man.
No, we do. But they gave me something that looked like a walkie-talkie, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm just like, what do I do with this thing? And it turns out it was pretty simple to play and pretty easy to get some hollers from the crowd on that thing. But it
works, yeah, right. It did the trick, right?
That thing, yeah.
I can't remember the brand, but it was this little gray plastic box, and it just said theremin on the side. It had like a little walkie-talkie thing on it. It's like you could hide it with your hand. But yeah, because it made the woo-woo sound, everybody was pretty happy in the long run.
Yeah, sort of thinking right there, Jess, the theremin can either be this really wild instrument with a lot of those wacky sounds, or it can go in the very virtuosic direction, which I can imagine, actually, I can't just imagine, I know from personal experience takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to even
Yes.
barely get to. So, sort of learning, developing practice on that instrument.
Yeah, and my goal is to practice a lot more this summer because I mean, it isn't like necessarily like riding a bike where you just get right back on. You've got to keep at it. But one is prone to give up when you start trying to play it because as I tell the story sometimes, like when Jeff bought me my first theremin, when I opened it up, because it's kind of a surprise for my birthday, I cried. But then when I tried to play it, I cried again because I sounded so bad. And, most people would say, oh, forget this after a few tries. But my goal, my mom was fascinated by the instrument. She actually got me very interested in it because my grandfather, turns out, back in the day, was really interested in theremins, and he never owned one, but always wanted one. And I think back then it was the original RCA model or something like that, and they were advertising it as, oh, an instrument in every home, like that anyone could play. Not, I mean,
Well,
because you can play it, but back then people didn't want to, there weren't science fiction movies back then, and people didn't want to just make whoop, wee, weird noises on it. They wanted to play like a virtuoso or play like a piano or have it sound like a voice, and that takes a lot of time and patience, and you have to hold your body very still because that's obviously, as you know, with the electromagnetic wavelength that surrounds it, if you move your body, it can throw out of pitch. And so when you're trying to play a tune, it's challenging. But I love that challenge, but I really enjoy the experimental side of it and all of the cool things you can do that are kind of more science fiction sounds and atmospheric and almost like sound art and performance art. So that's kind of the direction I think I'd like to go with it in future, is not try to make it the violin or the cello or even the voice. Like it really is it was an accidentally discovered instrument. It wasn't intended to be an instrument. It's magnificent that people can play it like virtuosos, but I think you're selling the instrument short if that's all you do with it, because there's so
right.
much more you can do with a theremin, and anybody can play it and have some fun with it, I think. So
Yeah, the recordings we've been making recently, and these include song recordings, are experiments in trying to create, well, I should say trying, in creating songs and music that is 100% has theremin as its sound source.
yeah,
So even if we, to the point of like, if you wanted to create a kick drum, if you've got, what's your larger theremin, Jessica? It's
theremin
the,
pro.
the Pro. If you take the Pro and you take it real back to where it's like, you start making it go click, 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 boom, you get these almost percussive
Well, it's a bass. It's like,
elements to it. And you could sample that, compress it, and put a little reverb on it, and you've got one heck of a kick drum. And likewise, once you start exploring that, you can take bass tones and sample and sequence those. So we've released one so far with the New York Theremin Society, and the song's called "I'm Your Satellite," and it's just wholly made of Moog theremin as its sound source and vocals, of course. And something else similar to what Jessica was saying that I'm really interested in doing is we've recently moved to an area where we have a nearby body of water, and to me, it just inspires musically to want to imitate the flow of water with the sounds that the theremin can make, and layering theremins, and maybe messing around with the speed of them to imitate the flow of the water and the feel of it. So yeah, using the theremin as a completely abstract instrument, along with also using it to make beat-oriented music.
you can get sounds that are like bird noises, which I love, and you can also get really annoying sounds, kind of like love it or hate it thing, like the bagpipes where people go like this. But I think also you could get some really rich, low bass sounds, especially with the Theremin Pro. And then also almost like bomber plane sounds. I mean, it can be very cathartic to play it based on the sounds and the range of sounds that can come out of it. When you have an ear for music and you know pitch and you have an ear, it's almost easy when you're practicing to play along, if you're trying to play a tune, to play along with the background music or with the song, because just trying to pull that out of the air and get it in the right key is challenging. But it's fun to have like that little backing track or to play with a song just to practice.
That's
Jeff,
what I was gonna. You mentioned just what I was gonna mention, Jess. That being a singer, it must make it somewhat connection between being a singer and doing learning the theremin.
well, I think the theremin is a voice of sorts, but it's a temperamental one. So it definitely, when I think of the people that are the greatest thereminists in terms of virtuosos, they were cellists, violinists. You know, they were like Clara Rockmore. She was a violinist or a string instrumentalist first, which makes sense. And then there are people like Lydia Kavina, who studied under Leon Theremin and is a relative of his that developed, probably from him. They had a fingering method where they get to do the notes, and that's not that hard to do. But I've also seen people play it where they just kind of keep their hand flat, or they make a fist, or they gradually move their hand. So there's so many different ways to play it. And I think people give up because they think, oh, look, that person can play it and it sounds perfect, like it's a cello or a violin, and I can't do that. And that shouldn't, I'm kind of the Doric Chrysler school of thought with theremin, where she believes everybody can learn to play if they have the will or they want to. And she teaches kids to learn how to play on the theremin, which is easier to learn on with all the synth sounds. So yeah, it's a cool instrument, definitely.
I,
Oh, good. Yeah.
I think another influence on Hyperbubble that may not be completely obvious is free jazz and experimental music. And one of the artists who we particularly enjoy is Sun Ra and his cosmic music and his cosmic space jazz. And if you read his book, Space is the Place, there's a part of it I really jumped out at me, where he would tell his artists to go listen to nature and go listen to animals. So he'd say, go listen to that bird that arrives on your windowsill and play what he's doing with the flute. And don't worry about the notes or anything. Literally imitate or play along with, be part of nature when you're playing. And the theremin, you can make the theremin sound like a cat. You can make it purr and hiss and and wail. It has so many, it has such personality that it can imitate nature as well.
So we're talking about these different musical directions. There's the experimental that we've been talking about. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Then there's also, obviously, the synth pop that we hear on the albums, the punk that we hear on the albums, then that sort of punk DIY ethos, but I know that's also sort of part of the heritage background. And, how do these all fit together, and how does Hyperbubble's music fit with people who are maybe embedded in each of these scenes or also fluid?
Right. I think we definitely are a hybrid, and for us, music, film, and art all inform each other. And I think probably our biggest the stuff that informs us the most probably is French New Wave cinema and punk. We're not necessarily I suppose for the rebellious nature, but also the idea of being bold and experimental and doing stupid stuff sometimes. Just trying it. Being willing to fail and not adhering to a particular genre necessary. And I think that's kind of part of what we're about too. If you look at the film Cowgirls and Synthesizers, at the very end in the climax scene, there's a bluegrass band playing, and Jessica's playing theremin along with that band. And I think that's one of the messages of the film is there's a lot being done right now to divide us as people. And music is even being used to divide us as people. You got like places like this stupid Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that says you're out and you're in, and there's a lot of injustices going on there, where there's people who have created music being excluded and people who have taken the ideas from those people being included. And music shouldn't have gatekeepers, if you ask me. And I think that's part of what the film is about too. It's this whole idea of purity and musical purity. It's no fun to begin with. come from San Antonio, Texas. That's where we spend most of our time performing as a band. And this was a city that thrived on culture and thrived on partying and fun, but also thrived on cheap thrills. And to us, we were never a band that had banks and banks of expensive synthesizers. We got a couple of drum machines, we got a microcord, we got a laptop, ready to go. That kind of attitude was a very San Antonio type of attitude.
Attitude. That's so cool that you said that, Jeff, because that's exactly what I was going to say. For me, is almost the difference between synth pop and synth punk. Because Jeff pointed out recently, we were talking about this, like synth pop, and that's a great term, but a lot of people think, oh, it's that, dance music, and that's all. Like it's not. They might not realize the depth and the breadth of synth pop and all that's out there. But synth punk has an attitude. So there's an attitude. There's this political, either whether overt or camouflaged into the music. There's something there that's really capturing your attention more than simply being atmospheric or simply being, I love atmospheric music, but it's, I think with Hyperbubble, there has always been this message. And sometimes you have to listen to the song a few times to catch it, So
yeah. Our last name, The Cure, we have French descendants, and I think a lot of the synth punk I like comes from France, or at least the mental image I have of synth punk is like this skinny French dude smoking a cigarette, kind of snarling a little bit. And I think
French Canadian.
Yeah, and it's two people. One guy like disaffected, like playing a note. The lead is like one note leads, and just like I would really rather be somewhere else than playing this lead. And I think synth punk has that snarl to it. It's got that kind of yeah to it.
Well, and it's weird when I think back to that show we did in France years ago. I guess that was 2010. And we went to Toulouse, and some folks we had met through social media were hosting us on a show. And it was really incredible because that was the one show, of all the places we traveled to. And, not a lot like everywhere, but the audience came up on the stage and danced with us. And I believe that was during Leon, which was really special for me. So it was just really cool to have that. You think of the French as being, kind of like standoffish or maybe even somewhat arrogant or, philosophical, and there are all those things. But great.
That's the thing, though. Maybe the thing behind that is cats are kind of an international language, and we may not necessarily connect with everybody on a musical basis. You may not understand synth punk or know the difference between that and synth pop or synth rock, but cats.
Yeah.
And I think we connected with a lot of people. Because of
Even
cats,
when we didn't speak French, we were like connecting with these people
and kids too, connecting with kids because they like kids dig cats. So I think cats are kind of like when you want to meet a new person, and sometimes having something in common is the way to introduce yourself. And cats have sort of been our introduction to a lot of people, including kids who like our stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. What I'm particularly proud of is, we don't have kids. We've always had cats. Cats are our kids, and that's okay. You could say we almost planned it that way, although we didn't. But it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of animals over the years, and all of them have been cats. And when we started writing music together, my nieces were very young. And my third niece wasn't even born yet. And when she was a baby, we were doing more of the real, some of our songs that I co-wrote sounded like it was music for kids because my nieces were so young and I was kind of inspired by them and their interests. And of course, cats. So we've never hidden the fact that our music is, for the most part, it's, if it's not PG, it's PG-13, it's very, very kid friendly. And before we were even doing Hyperbubble, we were writing songs that had, very, very kid-friendly lyrics, but there is an edge to it as well, as Jeff would tell you. So, yeah.
Yeah, dorky. We're kind of dorky.
We're
kind of nerdy, man. Sort of nerdy. We were the guys. We were the guys in school who like hung out with the unpopular kids. You know, who made friends with the ones who weren't so cool. You know, and I think our music is to some degree maybe for musical misfits and people who exist on the outside of what people consider to be the norm. You know, because that's what interests us culturally as well.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of us tend to be back in our youth and, in our somewhat older age. And it was also great that we were able to bring this full circle to cats again, right here.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what is up next for Hyperbubble?
Well, we definitely want to have a packaged DVD of the film that can be purchased and owned and collected, kind of a collector's item.
And we are going to be looking into licensing it for digital streaming after that, which is completely new to us. But just like everything else we tend to do, we're just going to jump into the deep end and try to swim our way to the top.
Awesome. Well, certainly best of luck with that. Keep us posted on the channel as the DVD and streaming comes out. And Jess and Jeff, thank you so much for being on Cat Synth TV today.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
To find out more about Hyperbubble and their music, please visit their official website and check out the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to Cat Synth TV.